Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking your source material, all the reports, the analyses, and we're digging into a story that, well, it pretty much defined 2025. I'm talking about the strategic roadmap of DeepSeek. If you look back, that year wasn't just another step forward in AI. It was a market reset, really. And it was driven by one company moving at a speed that just felt, frankly, absurd.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The key finding here, across all the sources, isn't just about a new model. It's about a whole new economic model for intelligence. DeepSeek just kept challenging that old idea that, bigger compute always wins.
They completely flipped the script. It wasn't about scale anymore. It was about efficiency.
Right.
And our mission today is to pull out those strategic nuggets that explain how. How did DeepSeek get to true frontier performance? On par with the very best closed models, but do it at a tiny fraction of the cost.
At the core of it.
Because this wasn't just a small improvement. It was a disruptive move that made high-end AI accessible to everyone, and it completely changed the geopolitical map for AI development in the process. And that one claim that just keeps coming up, high-end reasoning at 110th the cost.
Exactly.
That number 1/10 feels almost unbelievable. That's the piece we really have to justify here.
It's the headline, for sure. But to understand it, you first have to appreciate the sheer pace they were working at.
That's a perfect place to start. Let's just walk you through the timeline, because the speed they moved at in 2025, it left most of Silicon Valley in the dust. It all kicked off in January with DeepSeek R1. This was a very deliberate shot across the bow.
It was the first truly high-performing open-source model that was designed from the ground up to compete with the reasoning skills of giants like OpenAI.
They proved right away that frontier AI didn't have to be a closed club.
And they didn't stop to take a breath. By May, we already had the R10528 update.
And this wasn't a minor tweak.
No, not at all. This was a deep refinement, focused laser sharp on complex problem solving, mathematical reasoning, the stuff that really proves a model's intelligence. It showed they were targeting high-value skills, not just iterating.
Then August comes, and we see this huge strategic pivot, DeepSeek v3.1.
Right. If R1 was about performance, v3.1 was all about resilience.
Yeah, infrastructure.
Exactly. This release was all about optimizing for domestic chips, achieving real hardware independence. This is where the brilliant engineering met, well, hard-nosed geopolitics.
A move to make sure their whole strategy wasn't vulnerable.
Precisely. And they finished the year in December with DeepSeek v3.2. This one folded in multimodal capabilities and, maybe most importantly for businesses, advanced agentic features.
So you just trace that line in your head. Open source parity, then infrastructure resilience, then the future of autonomous systems.
All in 12 months.
It's just an incredible display of strategic execution. So we know what they released. Now, for the big question, how did they build it? Because this is where their whole efficiency-first approach really broke from the pack.
And what's so interesting is that they basically found a shortcut that bypassed the most expensive part of the AI race, that brute force training.
So what was the secret sauce?
The core of it for DeepSeek R1 is what your source material calls the reasoning breakthrough. Most labs were just scaling up. More data, more compute, making these gigantic models.
The brute force method.
Exactly. DeepSeek proved you could get there more efficiently with something called RL-driven distillation.
Let's pause on that term. For anyone listening who isn't a machine learning engineer, break that down for us. Why is that cheaper?
Think of it like this. Instead of spending billions teaching a massive model everything from scratch, like a student reading every book in the library, DeepSeek used a smaller, more focused approach.
A smarter approach.
Yes. They used reinforcement learning to basically distill the essential reasoning skills from a much larger internal model into a smaller, more efficient one. It's like hiring a world-class professor to teach a student only the most critical concepts so they can skip years of general study.
So you get the frontier-level knowledge without the massive upfront compute cost.
That's it. Significantly less investment to get to that same high bar.
Okay, that covers the training cost. But what about the running cost? That's where the 110th factor really matters, right?
It is. And that comes down to their mastery of MOE optimization. MOE stands for Mixture of Experts.
Right.
They refined this architecture so that the model could deliver that frontier performance while using way fewer active parameters for any given task.
And fewer active parameters means A lower electricity bill.
A much, much lower bill. And MOE model is like having a huge team of specialists on standby. But when a question comes in, it only wakes up the one or two experts it actually needs.
So the math expert for a math problem.
Exactly. The old models were like running a supercomputer at 100% power for every single question, no matter how simple. DeepSeek only spins up maybe 10% of the processors. Fewer active parameters means less power, less memory, and that's your direct line to that 110th cost advantage.
And on top of all that, they made it open source. The open source advantage.
A total masterstroke. They put it out there with the MIT license. The open weights meant anyone could customize it, which just supercharged global research. They essentially crowdsourced its adoption and improvement.
And they released all those different sizes, right? From small to large.
Yes, from 1.5 billion parameters up to 70 billion. That move democratized high-level reasoning for everything from, edge devices to small company servers.
And here's the bottom line. The thing that synthesizes it all, the sources confirm it. DeepSeek R1 reached performance parity with OpenAI's O1 Preview, a top-tier proprietary model.
On the hardest tasks.
Right. Complex math, coding, logic. They got the same results while being wildly cheaper to actually run. Which brings us right to the economic fallout. When the tech is that good and that cheap, disruption is, well, it's inevitable. What does a market clearing event actually look like in the real world?
It looks like total chaos for anyone whose business model relied on high prices. That market analysis quote you have says it all. DeepSeek's cost efficiency is not just a technical feat. It's a market clearing event that resets the valuation floor for the entire AI sector.
So if you're a closed source provider, you have a very big problem.
A massive problem. If you're charging, say, $1 for a service, and DeepSeek can offer the same quality for 10 cents, your model is broken.
Okay, but I have to challenge this a little. Is that 110th the cost claim really universal? Or are there some asterisks here? Is it apples to apples?
That's a very fair question. And the advantage is absolutely most pronounced in inference.
The running cost.
The day-to-day running cost, which is where companies spend the vast majority of their AI budget. DeepSeek fundamentally altered the economics of high-volume, real-world deployment. If you're running millions of reasoning tasks a day, saving 90% isn't just an optimization, it's transformative.
Which creates some powerful strategic effects.
Two critical ones. First, you get what we can call the open source moat. By making frontier models a commodity, they built this huge, loyal developer ecosystem around them.
And that ecosystem becomes a barrier to entry for closed competitors.
It's a gravitational pull. Developers build on your platform, they contribute, they get locked in. It's incredibly hard for a proprietary system to fight against that.
And the second impact.
Yeah.
That's the geopolitical hedge.
Absolutely. With all the global tech competition, DeepSeek's success immediately positioned it as the main way to get exposure to the Chinese AI market.
The default platform.
For any global company wanting to operate in or integrate with that economy, DeepSeek became the essential, efficient, locally optimized choice. It's a huge national asset.
So let's talk more about how they secure that asset. That takes us to V3.1 and this idea of hardware independence. It was more than just an update, wasn't it?
It was a critical strategic move to ensure their long-term survival. It directly tackled those geopolitical risks we just mentioned. If your whole strategy depends on foreign chips that can be cut off,
your strategy is built on sand.
It's incredibly fragile. So the big insight with V3.1 was proving they could optimize these high-performance models for non-NVIDIA domestic chips.
So using software smarts to make up for any potential hardware gap.
That's it, exactly. They proved you could close performance gaps with really deep, low-level software optimization, squeezing every last drop of performance out of the silicon you have available.
Which gives you that geopolitical resilience. It mitigates the risk of export controls, of supply chain chaos.
Yes, and the source actually calls this a hardware-agnostic moat. By decoupling their performance from one specific GPU maker, they build a self-sufficient advantage.
There's that great quote about it.
DeepSeek's V3.1 model emerges as a key pillar for China's chip self-sufficiency, proving that intelligence is not bound by silicon origin. It's a powerful statement of technological autonomy.
So with all this in place, what did it mean for the actual business user, for the big enterprises? It seems like DeepSeek forced a huge shift in thinking, away from just consuming APIs towards actual model ownership.
A massive shift. And it's because it solved the top 3 anxieties that C-suite executives have about AI.
And number one, especially in sensitive industries, has to be data sovereignty.
Without a doubt. Open source models mean enterprises can host AI on-premise. If you're a bank, a defense firm, a pharma company, You cannot just send your most sensitive R&D or client data to a third-party cloud. It's a non-starter.
And DeepSeek's efficiency made it possible to bring these powerful models in-house.
It did. It gave them complete control. For any high-security environment, model ownership is the only real answer.
The second driver is just pure economics, cost optimization.
Yep, we're back to the 110th factor. That dramatic cost reduction suddenly made all sorts of high-volume tasks financially viable. Think about analyzing every single customer service ticket in real time in every language. Before, that was cost prohibitive.
Now you can do 10 times the work for the same price.
Which opens up completely new applications that just weren't possible before.
And the third driver you mentioned.
Strategic independence. It's about de-risking global operations. Major international companies are actively trying to reduce their dependency on US-based cloud providers for their core tech. DeepSeek gave them a clear, cost-effective way to build that technological autonomy.
Which leads us perfectly into that final big release of 2025, v3.2. This is where the story pivots from AI as a tool to AI as an autonomous agent.
Yes, v3.2 was all about building the foundation for true automation. The key feature was native support for complex tool calling.
Meaning the model can interact with other systems.
Seamlessly. It can call APIs, query internal databases, use other software tools. It's the bridge from passive analysis to active execution.
So it's the difference between a chatbot that can summarize a report and an agent that can read the report and then autonomously file the expense claims mentioned in it.
That is the perfect analogy, and the sources lay out a clear framework for this agent architecture. It starts with a profile, its goals and constraints, then memory to access knowledge, then the crucial planning step, and finally, action.
And v3.2 enabled systems with multiple agents.
Right. Not just one assistant, but teams of specialized agents that can collaborate to handle an entire business process end-to-end with very little human oversight.
Which made DeepSeek a direct competitor to proprietary systems like OpenAI's Operator.
A direct challenger, but with that same key difference. It's built on an open source, incredibly cost-effective foundation for this new wave of automation.
Okay, let's look forward. Connect the dots for us. Where does this all lead for DeepSeek in 2026?
The goals are ambitious, but they're a logical next step. First, they're going to keep scaling reasoning. Expect to see R2 and R3 models that push even closer to human expert levels in really complex fields like scientific discovery or engineering.
And the other big push.
Vertical integration, building out that self-sufficient ecosystem, both software and hardware, and creating industry-specific agentic solutions that really leverage their cost advantage.
And their ultimate goal, the big prize they're shooting for.
To become the Linux of AI. They want to be that foundational open source layer that the entire global AI economy is built on. Just like Linux is the invisible backbone of everything from servers to phones, they want DeepSeek to be that for intelligence.
Which brings us to our final recommendations, pulled right from the source material for you, our listener, depending on your role. So if you're a tech leader, the advice is pretty clear. Start adopting DeepSeek now for your reasoning-heavy workloads. Capture that 110th cost saving, and seriously explore on-premise hosting for anything data-sensitive.
For investors, the message is a wake-up call. You have to reevaluate the valuations of proprietary providers because that cost advantage changes everything. And you need to be tracking hardware-software co-optimization. That's the new competitive edge.
And finally, for consultants.
You need to be advising your clients on strategic sovereignty and model ownership. Pilot agentic workflows. Show them how this cost efficiency can drive real deep transformation, not just incremental savings.
The core takeaway from this whole deep dive is that in 2025, DeepSeek launched a war on two fronts: technology and economics.
And they did it simultaneously. By proving that frontier intelligence could be cheap, accessible, and free under the MIT license, they just tore down the high-cost barrier to entry that propped up the whole market.
Which leaves us with a final, very provocative thought for you to take away. If intelligence really is not bound by silicon origin, as the source says, and if open source can match proprietary models at 110th the cost, then what is the long-term value, the actual sustainable moat of any high-cost black box AI model? It suggests we're looking at a fundamental and maybe permanent collapse in the price of digital intelligence worldwide. That was the deep dive into DeepSeek's game-changing 2025. Continue your own deep dive, and we will see you next time.